Welcome this evening. Um, this is indeed an honor. My name is Greg Evans. I am the Interim Chief Diversity Officer here at Lane Community College, and it is my pleasure to have the honor of introducing our guest this evening. First, I'd like to introduce our guest, Salgado Marion. Is best known is the best known poet of his generation in Brazil. Just this August, the Union of Brazilian Writers honored him with its Poetry Award for his retrospective collection, A Cor da Palavra. Now, you're going to have to forgive me. My Portuguese is not that good. So, but I will try my best not to butcher it. In 2014, he won the Brazilian Pen Club Prize for his book, O Mapa da Tribo. In 2011, he won the Poetry Award from the Brazilian Academy of Letters for the above mentioned A Cor de Palavra. And in 1999, he won the prestigious Jabuti for Mural de Ventos. At this stage, he has won every major literary award available in Brazil. He has also collaborated extensively with well known Brazilian musicians and composers, and his work has appeared on a number of recordings. So you are the Pele of Brazilian poetry here. Here in the USA, his bilingual collection, Blood of the Sun, Milkweed Editions 2012, led to a 90-day reading tour that brought the two of us to 52 universities in the eastern half of the country. His second book in the USA, published this fall, is Tiger Fur by White Pine Press, 2015. Salgado may be of special interest as an Afro Brazilian success story, having risen from rural impoverishment to the peak of poetic achievement in his country. Like I said, Pele. Or now it's, what is it, Ronaldo? Or, yeah, one of the great football men. Name it, that's right. Alexis Levitin has translated 38 books, including Clarice Lispector's Soulstorm and Eugenio de Andrade's Forbidden Words, both from New Directions. Books published in 2015 include 28 Portuguese poets, translated with Richard Zenith, Del, de, Del, de Dallas, book, Deluis, okay, Deluis Press in Dublin, Ireland. Destruction in the Afternoon by Santiago Vizcaíno. Uh, Delegos Books, New Orleans. Exemplary Tales by Sophia de Mello Brenner Anderson. Targus Press, I'm sorry. And Salgado Mariano's Tiger's Fur. He has been awarded 3 Fulbrights and 2 National Endowment for the Arts translation fellowships. He has held translation residencies at the Banff International Translation Center. I happen to know where that is. It's up in Canada. It is. It's gorgeous. The European Translators Colloquium in Strahlen, Germany. He's won that twice. And the Rockefeller Foundation Study Center in Bellagio. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest, Salgado Marianos and Alexis Levitin.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And I hope I didn't butcher you too bad.
Deixa eu começar.
That's right. I gotta get you. See, I'm gonna get out of here without giving you your microphone and get you to do it a la carte, huh? So there we go.
Diga.
We want to put you up on the stand.
Boa noite. Eu quero agradecer imensamente as palavras do professor Evans.
I want to thank Professor Evans for his very kind words.
And I want to say good evening to all of you.
A sua imensa generosidade comigo.
His great generosity with Salgado.
E agradecer a todas as pessoas dessa organização que me parece mais uma colmeia do afeto.
And I want to thank everybody involved in bringing us here because it seems like a kind of a community of affection.
Essas mulheres tão incríveis, sensíveis e que vão tecendo uma teia de carinho, de afeto, que a gente cada hora sai num lugar mais bonito do que o outro, do coração.
The women who have organized this seem to be weaving a web of affection and sentiment that leads us from one happy place to another.
Sara, Cecília, a nossa descendente de oriental ali, como é o nome dela?
Lynn.
Lynn, super obrigado por tudo. Eu estou tão à vontade, me sentindo tão bem nessa casa, como se eu trabalhasse aqui.
I'm really super grateful to all of you. I feel so good here. It's as if I actually had a job teaching at this school.
Vamos começar a leitura aqui, eu com meu querido parceiro de aventuras com a palavra, que é o mais importante hoje, tradutor de poesia para a língua inglesa. Não só pelo volume de traduzido, mas pela qualidade.
So we're now going to begin the reading with my partner here, that's me, who is not only the best translator of Portuguese poetry into English, just in terms of the volume. Actually, it's 39 volumes now, I think, but I get mixed up also. 38, 39, but by the quality of the work. That's what he said. I'm just translating him.
Vendo o professor Evans falando sobre meu nome e algumas referências a respeito da minha obra, com uma certa dificuldade natural com o idioma, e a minha é maior do que a dele. A minha dificuldade com o inglês é muito maior do que a dele.
My words to Professor Evans are that if you have a problem here and there with one of these words for pronunciation, just can you imagine what it's like for me visiting America and trying to speak English?
Obrigado, Raquel, da Argentina, que está aqui para nos ouvir com carinho. Ela está fazendo um trabalho. Obrigado, poeta Sepúlveda, pela gentileza e o carinho de ter vindo aqui hoje nos ouvir.
Thanks a lot for Raquel from Argentina, who is here to hear us, and also Professor Sepulveda, who is over at the University of Oregon and has come to hear us a second time.
Você me pediu para fazer um movimento, é isso?
Bom.
Você acha que tudo bem?
Yes, eu acho que sim. Who was talking to us about Japanese? Sid Corman. Say, Cecilia was speaking to us about Sid Corman and her interest and his interest in Japanese poetry. And Salgado not only reads Japanese poetry, but he also studied, I can't tell you what. He studied martial arts movements, and he himself for 14 years was a massage therapist. And he does a poem which is illustrated by a kind of martial arts dance. And he usually does some warm-up exercises for this particular poem, but I'll say thank you for that. No? Okay, he doesn't want to injure himself. But I will give you the general idea. This is a poem about nature and the cruelty, or the natural cruelty of nature, in which there is always a battle, and there's always someone who wins and someone who loses. There is someone who eats, and there's someone who is eaten. And this poem is about a frog who is eaten by a snake. But the snake does such a good job that the frog just nestles in the coils of the snake, thinking that it has been welcomed home to a land of comfort, when in fact the snake is just about to eat him.
Na fala de hoje, não sei se foi o Jaque que estava lá assistindo. É Jaque esse de camisa preta? Aqui. De música. Alguém falou do espírito da canção, do espírito da poesia, e o que eu vou fazer é inspirado naquilo que os orientais buscaram no espírito dos animais.
The piece I will present, it's quite brief, is based upon or inspired by the Oriental sense of what can be found in the animal kingdom and what can inspire us in the behavior of animals.
Aquilo que está profundamente ligado à alma, que já não exige mais pensamento, que é quase que eles chamam de não agir, de tanto que é profundo, o corpo faz sozinho, a mente acompanha.
This is in a way based on a vision of a world where the body instinctively does its thing and there's no intermediary interference of the conscious mind, and yet it does its thing perfectly well.
Muita gente via as artes marciais como uma coisa apenas de dar pancada, mas para os orientais era uma luta própria, uma luta de autossuperação.
Many people think the martial arts is all about beating up the other person, but it's really about a relationship with yourself and overcoming deficiencies or weaknesses in your own character.
Este poema que eu vou falar é título do meu primeiro livro, meu segundo livro, aliás, mas que eu estava mais ligado à questão das meditações orientais, das reflexões sobre as artes orientais e seu espírito.
This very short poem is the poem that gave its title to my second book, The Fist of the Serpent, or the Serpent's Fist, or the Snake's Fist. And he was at that time really interested in the martial arts, Japanese and Chinese poetry, and the whole question of, I think, the whole question of living in a rich way that avoids self-consciousness. He's got to do his exercises first. É necessário assim? Não.
Não, pode deixar. Eu vou fazer embaixo. Embaixo porque em cima
tá bom, tá bom. Espaço. Mas é necessário o microfone ou não?
Não, só okay. Se você quiser falar para.
But I've already told you the gist of what he's acting out. So.
É poema que não está traduzido e o Alex conhece a ideia e vai falar mais ou menos do que está querendo dizer o poema. Não pense em rigor todo da tradução porque ele não trabalhou ainda no poema.
This poem has never been translated, but I know what it's about, and I've already told you in general. It's really about the serpent or the snake welcoming in, with such suavity of motion and of gesture, the frog, that the frog feels that he is visiting a place of affection, when in fact he is about to be devoured.
É uma estilização do Kung Fu, do estilo da serpente do Kung Fu.
It's a stylization of the serpent doing Kung Fu or represented in Kung Fu.
Eu acompanho o movimento da serpente e o seu diálogo com a chama. É tanto que quando a chama ao seu seio, não faz como quem mata, mas como quem constrói seu seio. E o faz com tal leveza que a rã se esquece que é presa e passa a ser sua irmã. Que no combate o punho seja assim, quase uma imaginação, e entre tão suave como a nossa afeição.
Bravo. That's it. You can see the final motion as it enters into what seems to be our affection.
Vamos começar. Venho dos córregos de água salobra, do descampado chão de farelos. Na cara o sol rachou minha argila seca. É o que digo aos guardiões que batem lata em meu silêncio. Distante ovulam ritos na memória como remendos no ontem. E meu olhar rasante incide, infante, ao cânion livre e ao habites da flama do dia e sua blitz. O que não busco me tem, o que não houve era meu. Pedras no caminho torto, mentiras feitas de mel. Há que se viver o árido como se cálido, há que se viver o breu como se bril, há que se viver o nada como se nada, nada, nada até sangrar, que só dão água para quem já tem o mar.
This is poem number 4 from a sequence of 8 poems called Blood of the Sun, Sol Sanguíneo. I come from gullies of brackish water, abandoned fields of stubbled earth. The sun has cracked the dry clay of my face. That's what I say to the guardians rummaging about in my silence. In the distance, rituals of memory ovulate like patches on yesterday, and my sweeping gaze swoops a prince through the free canyon and the dwelling place of the flame of the day and its blitz. What I do not look for holds me. What didn't exist was mine. Stones on the twisting path, lies made of honey. One must live the arid, impassioned and torrid. One must live the vile with valor, with style. One must live nothingness as if it were nothing, nothing, nothing to the very last drop. They only give water to one who already has the sea.
Voltar ao desolado abrigo da terra chã. Voltar aos limítrofes da palavra, larva fulminante e alarde que assiste da dispensa ao rapto da existência. Voltar ao sol atávico, onde os loucos riem-se à sombra da neblina. E bardo, romper a borda, rasgar o ímen da linguagem, que capta em sua teia os inquilinos do assombro. O que move a lenda é o fulgurar do incêndio, o raio invicto a fecundar a pedra. Falo do que se inscreve no inabordável, como a lua no lago alada. Falo do que falam caninos num tempo de crotá-los, voltar ao fulminante alarde da palavra.
This is poem number 1 from Blood of the Sun, Flatlands. To return to the desolate shelter of the flatlands, to return to the borders of the word, larva ravenous, a repressed roar that witnesses from the pantry the violation of existence. To return to the atavistic soil where madmen laugh in the shadows of the mist. And the bard, to break the border, tear the hymen of language that traps in its web tenants of astonishment. What moves the legend is the fire's blaze, the undefeated ray fertilizing stone itself. I tell of what is inscribed on the unapproachable, like the winged moon lying on the lake. I tell of what the canines tell in the time of Crotalus, to return to the ravenous roar of the word. Crotalus is the Latin name, or half of the Latin name, for the rattlesnake, which is very common in the region that he grew up in. In fact, his brother got bitten, though he survived.
Minha terra é o nome que desabotoa o indomável, a palavra física em meu uives entrado. Minha terra é ter-me. E urdir no capítulo da carne o sopro itinerante e arder sob o sono do tempo e sua lírica de escombros. Recolhido às artérias lúdicas, ouço cantar a memória no living das lagoas secas. Insular e ascética a semente fugaz dos rastos me guarda em seu enigma. Longe é a flor que fala a contenção que transborda, e ao cio homicida que o vento escuta e cala. Do cais rasurado de esperas, velam noites até Saratabax. Minha terra é minha pele. Das rinhas em que o sal dá músculos à água, vieram o sol e o azeviche conjugados à carne. E vieram moendas de açúcar e súplica, e vieram demandas de açoites e séculos a desatar fonemas à fervura. A mim que cingiram caminhos ao mar de Antilhas laceradas.
My home is the name that blossoms the indomitable, the physical word in my disemboweled howl. My home is to own myself, and to weave in a chapter of flesh the wandering breath, and to burn beneath the sleep of time and its lyric of debris. Withdrawn to playful arteries, I listen to memory sing in a living room of dry lagoons. Insular and ascetic, the fleeting seed of markings holds me in its mystery. Far off is the flower that speaks of a restraint that overflows, and of a murderous lust to which the wind listens and then grows silent. From the dock wiped clear of waiting, night keeps vigil to the clashing of African drums. My home is my skin. From cockfights in which salt gives water muscles comes the sun and the blackest black mated to the flesh, and mills for grinding sugar cane, and men in supplication, and impositions of the whip, and centuries of untangling phonemes to add to the boil. To me, with whom they sailed their way to the Sea of the Antilles, lacerated.
Pelo menos resta o verso. Árido mineral a soprar sua luz transversa, e os remendos da linguagem a despirem o que vestem. Abram-se talhos na tarde gris, grafemas luminares. No beco da página em branco, freme o lábaro do poema ao rastilho de sílabas cruas, tão furtivo que a palavra apenas esmerilha seu dorso de lince. Algo se rasga na casca do insondável, donde assisto ao tempo atado à minha ínfima espessura. Algo marulha na derme e na calha do signo manifesto. Minha terra é o nome do indomável enigma, a palavra física incrustada na fábula. Minha terra é minha pele.
This is poem number 8, the last poem in the sequence. At least the verse remains, arid mineral, breathing its slant light, and the patches of language stripping bare what they clothe. May the gray afternoon be rent, luminary markings. At the dead end of the blank page trembles the banner of the poem to the trickling of raw syllables, so furtive that the word just grazes its lynx's back. Something is tearing at the rind of the unfathomable, where I attend time tied to my minute breadth. Something is surging in the skin and in the furrows of the manifest sign. My home is the name of the untamed mystery, the physical word embedded in the tale. My home is my skin.
Nenhum problema. Do sopro. O sopro do quinto é septo. O selfie dos meninos avança as águas turvas e o rasgo da mirada, límpido perfil do gesto atado ao transe. O sopro, lume e larva, pedra, sangue e flor. Face ao que consagra e nutre, face ao vário desvario onde anjos rotos rezam aos abutres. Há uma zona em que os cristais se partem, sob a lava ancestral do sangue. Há incêndios na raiz do gesto, vestígios de pólvora nas palavras, e quando a voz é a cicatriz que canta.
This poem is more or less dedicated to the street kids of Rio de Janeiro who are homeless, have, of course, no source whatsoever of income. They get in trouble. They sometimes get massacred by the police. It's not an easy poem, either emotionally or even poetically, but it is dedicated to examining their sense of identity. I think he finds it quite amazing that they can exist at all. Of the breath that intercepts the selfhood of the boys, advances turbid waters and the tearing of a gaze, the limpid profile of a gesture tied to their trance. The breath, light and larval, stone, blood, flower, confronting what it consecrates and nourishes, facing the diverse, the perverse, where tattered angels pray to vultures. There is a place where crystals fall apart beneath the ancestral lava of blood. There is a blaze in the roots of a gesture, vestiges of powder in the power of words. And when there is a voice, it is the scar that sings.
Decola dos dias ávidos para o colo da sintaxe, o ermo voo da língua sob a voz. Pulsa nos átrios a espessa urgência da dor, no átimo que o tempo inscreve o que nos ergue e nos renega. Pulsa a voragem da chama sobre a íris, no rastro que o tempo grafa nossa incerta iluminura. Devagar, as palavras amanhecem para exaltar o que não fomos. O poema se debate entre pupilas, dói no espelho, dói no sopro e dói onde a luz é pedra, onde o ouço é uivo. Ruge sob as veias ocas a resgatar o espectro larvar das palavras adormecidas. Arrima-se na lâmina que se emana à possessão da vestigem. O poema carne, cingido a pregos e a tijolos crus, arrebenta o mar que nos inunda.
This is a two-part poem called Of Time. Taking off from days avid for the breast of syntax, the lonely flight of language beneath the voice. There throbs in the atria the thick urgency of pain, in the instant that time inscribes what lifts us up and then denies us. There throbs the veracity of flame, pulsing the iris, the trail that time carves, our dubious illumination. Part 2. Slowly words dawn to exalt what we never were. The poem struggles among retinas, aches in the mirror, aches in the breath, and aches where light is stone, where bone is howl. It roars beneath hollow veins, ransoming the larval spectre of sleeping words. It leans upon the blade that couples with the ecstasy of vertigo. The poem, flesh, bound with nails and unbaked tiles, breaks against the sea that drowns us.
Depois eu vou concluir o novo e um anomami mais tarde. Tenta esculpir a litania dos pássaros e as palavras mordem a inocência. Aferram-me ao que é de pedra e perda. Canto ao coração e tudo é víscera como na savana. Restolhos de espera e crimes, insights de insânia e súplica, volúpias insolúveis, acossam-me a página em branco, qual bandido bárbaro ou mar revolto, a rasgar a calha do poema. Nada me resgata. Não sei se sou quem morre ou quem mata.
This is the first time we're reading this poem in 4 years. Pharaoh, rage. I try to sculpt the litany of birds, and the words bite innocence. They cling to stone that lasts and loss. I sing the heart, but all is viscera, as on the great savannah. Residue of hope and crime, insights of insanity and supplication, insoluble sensuality surround the whiteness of my page like a bloody buccaneer or raging sea tearing at the pathway of the poem. Nothing ransoms me. Am I the killer or the killed?
No meu país, no Brasil, hoje é Dia do Índio.
Today, in my country, this is the Day of the Indian in Brazil.
Não há muito a comemorar, porque em 1500, quando os portugueses lá chegaram, havia 6 milhões e agora há menos de 200 mil.
There isn't much to celebrate. When the Portuguese arrived in the year 1500, there were 6 million Indians. Today there are 200,000.
O poema que eu vou falar é um poema chamado Yanomami. Ele trata justamente dessa extinção dos índios.
The poem we're going to do now is called Yanomami. That's the name of an Indian tribe in the Amazon, and it deals with the extinction of the Indian populations or the indigenous populations.
Há uma lenda na tribo dos Yanomami em que o colonizador que chegou e tomou posse e destruiu a natureza não nasceu como os outros, ele nasceu do menstro.
There was a myth or theory amongst the indigenous peoples that these white men who came and destroyed nature and didn't participate as part of nature, that they weren't born the way ordinary people are born, but that they were actually born from menstrual blood, direct.
Este poema Yanomami fala disso, dessa visão mítica dos Yanomami.
This poem that we're about to read speaks directly of that Yanomami myth.
Quando vierem os filhos do menstro, com suas línguas de pólvora, quando vierem as hordas rudes, chama Tupã, chama Xamã. Quando vier a luz sangrenta, quando vierem os deuses homicidas com sua sede de pedras, chama Tupã, chama Xamã. Quando os lugares sagrados forem tocados, a noite virá. Virá como o hálito da manhã, pois estarei me pondo fraco. A noite virá como o vento, pois estarei morrendo. Quando o rio grifar na terra ácida sua legenda de sangue. Ó vento que alinha o destino, ó rito que fala aos ancestres, chama Xamã, chama Tupã.
Yanomami. When the children of menstruation come with gunpowder tongues, when the barbarous hordes come, call Tupã, call Xamã. When the bloody light comes, the homicidal gods with their thirst for stones, call Tupã, call Xamã. When the sacred places are disturbed, night will come. It will come like the breath of morning, for I will be growing weak. The night will come like the wind, for I will be dying. When the river carves from bitter earth its legend of blood, O wind that aligns our destiny, O right that speaks to our ancestors, call Tupã, call Xamã.
O poema que vou falar agora é um poema que, de certo modo, ele evoca, aliás, ele inaugura o livro Taigefo.
The poem I'm going to read now, if I ever find it, is the poem that provoked, in a way, this later book, Tiger Fur.
Porque ele foi dedicado à minha ex-mulher e o poema que eu leio agora, Limítrofe 5, já trata desse conflito que levou à nossa separação. Por isso ele inaugura o próximo livro.
And this poem I'm about to read, Limitrof Boundary 5, is dedicated to my ex-wife, Cacao, and it already deals with the conflicts that occur in a passionate relationship, the good and the bad, and in that way it's a perfect precursor for moving to this book, which is about the ambiguities of a love affair, the ambivalencies we all feel confronting these rather uncontrollable emotions, both of ecstasy and of anguish.
Limítrofe 5, para Cacau. Teus olhos água lumem na xícara de chá. São duas ervilhas virgens, tuas ogivas ágeis. Falam pela córnea exilada em mim, que rasga a flor do lábio o hálito de pequenas mortes. Um a um, os teus gestos grifam secretos acervos, mesmo quando púrpura rosna a cidade dos humores. Agarro-me a teus capilares, rotas de fuga e permanência. A nudez nos aborda nas entrelinhas tortas e nos desacordes. Livres do cerco do fogo, erguemos no pó nosso ramo de fábulas.
Boundary 5, Warheads, for Cacao. Your eyes water-lumen in a cup of tea, two virgin peas, warheads in flight. They speak through the cornea exiled in me that tears to the surface of my lips a breath of little deaths. One by one your gestures underscore a stack of secrets, even when your city growls its purple humors. I cling to your capillaries, trajectories of flight and permanence. Nakedness approaches us between our twisted lines, and you untune us. Free of the circle of fire, we raise from the dust our branch of mythic tales.
Este livro, que é um livro de amor, de poemas sobre o amor, mas não necessariamente para uma mulher apenas. É uma reflexão sobre as possibilidades e impossibilidades do amor.
This second book, Tiger Fur, is about love, but it isn't just about love for a specific woman, though that was the cause or the jumping off point for the book, but rather about the possibilities and impossibilities of a passionate, intense passion in itself.
Prélogos 1. O amor editou suas garras em meu delírio. Móvel meteoro a blefar seu fogo rasante. De algum rugir indomável, submerso como pulsar das pedras, sinto o vórtice do seu brilho na jugular. Por isso grito para que as palavras me reconheçam. Assombros, raios, névoa, alastram-me esta ambígua paisagem dos olhos. Tudo que rege a grafia sísmica, presente no que dista o impalpável, como o esquecimento.
Sorry for a technical interruption. It's the microphone is very powerful, and I think you're getting some. Yeah. Prologus 1. Love left its claws engraved in my delirium, mobile meteor diluting with its furtive flame. From some indomitable roar, submerged like the pulsing within stones, I feel the vortex of its gleaming in my jugular. That's why I scream, so the words will know me. Terror, lightning, fog spread an ambiguous landscape before my eyes. All that governs seismic signs present still in what grows distant or untouchable, like forgetting.
Estão me ouvindo falando daqui? Desse jeito, dessa distância?
Does that sound good from that distance? Good.
Ok, muito obrigado. Trata-se de fogo indiferente à combustão, caldeira que se nutre do que percute. Um carpi rente ao nada, um certo aqui alhuriz. Ante o silêncio que espreita e a febre que desacata os limites, um reino se declara. E o que busca esse Deus herê, ao revés do que exorta, ó raio que se desgarra a sujar de luz a vida?
Prelogus 2. It's a question of a fire indifferent to combustion, a furnace feeding on the thing that beats, a weeping on the edge of nothingness, a certain here, somewhere else. Before the silence that observes and the fever that affronts all limits, a kingdom now declares itself. And what is that child God looking for, contrary to its exhortations? O lightning bolt burst free, to make life filthy with your light.
Uma das características do meu trabalho é o uso da sintaxe de modo inusual.
One of the characteristics of my poetry is to use syntax in an unusual way.
Naturalmente, isso causa problemas para quem vai traduzir.
Naturally, this creates problems for the translator, and I'm sitting here in great trepidation.
Mas se não existem os problemas, não existem as soluções.
But if it weren't for problems, how could you ever have solutions?
Viver é criar problemas.
To live is to create problems.
Quando paramos de criar problemas, já não estamos mais nessa vida.
When we have ceased to create problems, we're no longer in this world or in this life.
Então, este poema é Nadires, que tem rimas quase inexistentes em português e deve ser ainda mais difícil em outra língua, em inglês.
This poem has a couple of rhymes that have never been attempted in Portuguese before, and he says it must be even more difficult in English. Obviously, I didn't create difficult rhymes. I had to create other words in order to have the rhymes. For example, the word yeast appears in my poem, and it does not appear in the original poem. But if you want to hear something bizarre, the word humerus, which is the bone here, is a rhyme word in the original, and obviously humorous, unless I were Lord Byron, it'd be impossible for me to find a rhyme for that.
A sanha que aquece a raiz dos húmeros enseja o coração disparate, ao desvelar o que é de flor em fero, ao se tornar fiel a que lhe mate. São forças que nos raptam sem número de vezes e vieses e desates, e nos reduzem simplesmente a uns meros, felizes perdedores desse embate. Tal que não há trégua entre o amor e o fogo, nem no sonho que enlaça nossa íris, nessa teia de nadas e nadires, em que tudo se rende ao mesmo jogo. Vem da palavra a sagração dos ritos, esta relíquia de silêncio e gritos.
This is the first of two sonnets that we'll be reading, and they both deal with these mixed feelings provoked by a passionate relationship. And what interests me is that both poems somehow end up with, if there is a salvation, it's not in the emotion, it's probably in the words that can then deal with the emotion, the words that can create the two sonnets. Nadirs, I hope that's correct. The low point in your life, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I've had such a happy life that I've never had to use the word nadir. Nadirs, the burning shoulders rage like bubbling yeast attends the foolish gestures of the heart as it unveils the flower in the beast, as it turns faithful to its killer's art. There are forces that gnaw us hour after hour through endless slippage without consummation, reducing us, stripped now of all our power, to happy losers in our confrontation. No truce is struck between true love and flame, not even in the dream that snares our eye in webs of nothing where our nadirs lie, where everything surrenders to the only game. But from the word, blessed rituals arise, this reliquary of silence and of cries. I love this poem for the last line, that words can somehow be called a reliquary of silence and of cries. I think is excellent, because I think silence is an important part of poetry, and a lot of students at least don't realize that. They see poetry as an outcry. But the strength of the cry is only in proportion to the silence around it.
Usando a metáfora do gato, ou o gato como metáfora para falar do amor, no que ele tem de suave e ao mesmo tempo guardando as unhas para a traição.
The next poem has the image not yet of a tiger. The last poem will. This one is the image of a cat which has all that smooth gentleness to it, and at the same time has the sharp claws, which perhaps for a time remain hidden.
As unhas na íris. O olhar ambíguo espreita o movimento no vácuo entre as unhas e a gula. Adentra um certo visgo à fome transeunte e enreda o cerco a bordo do disfarce que súbito revela sua malha de gatuno. Olhos que afluem dísticos de luz e lâminas sob lã em que se oculta sua única delinquência. A fera e sua trágica ternura, no afã do mito voraz e avaro, desossa o seu tesouro.
Boy, the title of this poem is so violent that the poem becomes unnecessary. But I will read the whole thing. The title is Claws in the Iris. Margaret Atwood has a brilliant short poem, which is even more piercingly to the point. You might look it up. What's it called, Sarah? It's a great poem, 4 lines. Claws in the iris. The ambiguous gaze catches motion in the space between claws and throat. A certain stickiness impregnates transitory hunger, and it lays its tangled web within its mask that suddenly reveals a sharper's shimmering coat, eyes that flow with couplets of light, and a blade beneath the fur in which it hides its ontological delinquency. The beast and its tragic tenderness, with an appetite of avaricious myth, debones its treasure. That middle part of the poem, a sharper shimmering coat, eyes that flow with couplets of light, and a blade beneath the fur in which it hides, reminds me of Mac the Knife, who was dapper, so well dressed, so charming to look at, but he was Mac the Knife. And here it is the cat who always has its claw hidden beneath the beautiful soft fur. Yeah, 1 second. A fishhook, an open eye.
Somos a pelagem perdida do outono e a íntima dimensão em que o abismo impõe seus olhos. Somos esta treva branca, no rastro em que as palavras se desnudam. Algo que entre dentes reluz um clamor silente. Desenredos, desamares, a rasurar manhãs no amanhã. O amor respira à sombra de um felino.
This group of poems, called Open Sea, begins with poem number 1, which is almost a prose poem. The way it lies on the page, to me, looks like a prose poem. We are the lost coat of autumn, and the intimate dimension in which the abyss affirms its gaze. We are that blank darkness on the trail where words strip bare, something that between teeth scintillates, silent clamoring, plotless, loveless, erasing tomorrow's morning. Love breathes in a feline shadow.
E agora o poema que dá título ao livro, Tiger Fur.
Now the poem, and now the poem that gave the title to the book, Tiger Fur.
São feitas de crisântemos as fibras desse fogo que se molda à palavra. E a esse jogo em que o amor se equilibra como se a vida então lhe fosse escrava. Ou talvez da pelagem de uma tigra que ocultasse um vulcão em sua lava, para blefar que fica enquanto migra, para fingir que beija quando crava. Mas isto são hipóteses, ou arenga ao que se queira e não está à venda. Um teçar de lábios na carne brusca. São só pegadas do que seja a lenda, de algum tesouro que se nos ofusca, que ao tê-lo não se tenha mais que a busca.
I have to admit this poem isn't exactly about salvation through the word, but it's about the unreachableness of any conclusion in a realm of desire. When my brother, who is a completely normal person, chides me for a lifetime of bachelorhood and tries to make me toe the normal line, he says, "Lex, did it ever occur to you that you always choose impossible women?" Did it occur to me? I've dedicated my whole life to choosing impossible women. I am the sailor who loves the horizon. Tiger fur, chrysanthemums, the fibers of this fire that molds itself to words, that takes their shape and fits the game where balanced on a wire, love sways as if life now were just its slave. Or maybe they are made of tiger's fur that hides volcanic flames behind its play, to sink its fangs as it pretends to purr, to go away as it pretends to stay. But these are just hypotheses that veil with talk what you desire that's not for sale. A sudden clash of lips on flesh, on skin, that tracks no more of some forgotten tale of treasure that bewilders us and takes us in. So winning it we only win chagrin. So that's the end of this book, but we will return to one or two poems from the first book.
Êxtase é um poema mais leve, mais sobre as flores.
Some of you have already heard this poem. Of course, some of you were present either at the honors gathering or the music. And this is the poem. This is the poem about looking at a photograph of hibiscuses dancing in the wind.
Êxtase. Dançam hibiscos na fotografia, dançam sem movimento, absortos em sua rubra caligrafia. Dançam hibiscos de sangue, dançam na íris da cidade, dançam no clima, dançam na rima, dançam no olho da fotografia, dançam no cromo do dia, dançam exóticos, dançam exatos, extasiados no estático, dançam, dançam, dão-se.
If any of you have the book, and I have not already corrected the last line of this poem, please come up to me after our presentation. I would love to correct it. Ecstasy. Hibiscuses dance in the photograph. They dance, motionless, absorbed in their crimson calligraphy. Hibiscuses of blood. They dance in the eyes of the city. They dance these climes, they dance these rhymes, they dance in the eye of the photograph. They dance lithe lithograph of day. They dance exotic, they dance exact, in ecstasy, statically. They dance, they give themselves to dance.
E para encerrar, vamos falar um poema que é dedicado à minha mãe. Como já falamos muito dela hoje aqui, provavelmente vai ser erigido um monumento no seu nome.
The last poem will be the poem dedicated to his mother, since we've already spoken about this poem and read it aloud, I believe, twice today. He's expecting your campus to raise a statue in her honor.
Então eu vou direto ao poema. A epígrafe que fala: fico aqui debaixo dessas palmeiras, assuntando o tempo, recebendo a mensalidade das plantas. De ti não há sequer um álbum de família, retratos da infância nos campos de arroz e gergelim. Talvez reste em pensamento pedaços de tua voz no vento, como impressões digitais num rio. No dia em que o azul roubou teus olhos e o silêncio rival rasgou teu nome, cotovias cantaram no meu rastro, no dia em que a manhã cerrou teus olhos. Sem ti, sou a flor da árvore desolada. Agora o mar bate em minhas rochas e a noite ronda meus calcanhares.
The poem is called Mater instead of mother or mom, because I think because he knows she attended Mass whenever she could. A priest would only come by about once a year. But when he did come by, he would present Mass in Latin. And she loved the sound of the Latin, though of course she didn't understand it, as true of almost all of us. But there's something very comforting or attractive about the music of the language. And so this was a musical experience for his mother. He came home from Rio once and said to his mom, "So what do you do all day? After you've cleaned the house and cooked the meal, what do you do with the rest of your day?" And she said, "Well, son, sometimes I sit here under one of these palm trees, taking in the wind and the monthly payments of the plants." So he thought that was very poetic, and he started off his poem with that as an epigram. Dona Raimunda Salgado, that was his mother's name. Part 1. Part 1 was written 3-4 months before she died. Parts 2 and 3 were written 15 years later. Part 1. Of you, there's not even a family album. Photos of childhood in fields of rice and sesame. Maybe in my thoughts there linger fragments of your voice in the wind, like fingerprints on a river. 2. On the day the blue stole your eyes and silence tore apart your name, skylarks started singing in my tracks. On the day the morning closed your eyes. 3. Without you, I am the blossom on the tree, bereft. Now the sea beats against my rocks, and the night prowls at my heels. Thank you all. That's
Thank
all.
you. Thank you.